Hi everybody, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about, well, how do the Amish get their news? I hope you stay tuned.
The parting glass. Good night and God be with you all.
Hi everybody, I'm sitting out here in my colonial Amish garden. I am just absolutely loving how it turned out this year, and I will show you about that a little more. We've been doing a lot of work, hubby and I, and our place has transformed in the last 2 weeks. But I wanted to talk to you about the Amish and where do they get their news. It's no secret that the Amish do have the internet now, and a lot of them have cell phones, but they do not involve themselves in the mainstream news. But they do have their own newspaper. And so they have the budget. And this is called the budget. And this is the Plain People's News. And so it's a regular newspaper. It talks about all of their different communities. In this issue, it talks about all of the things that the world is talking about, but it has a different spin on it because it's their way of just explaining the news. In other words, it is conservative. This is the conservative news. It talks about the different Amish communities. So you'll have the different communities, and they talk about the churches. So the different Amish communities will go by their states, like this. They have talks about Bible seminars and things like that. So it is conservative news. They talk about the families, so it's going to be very different than what your newspaper would be like. It's only 50,000 readers each week in the Plain community, so it's not like it's a huge newspaper, but it's called the budget. And anybody can buy the budget, and it has the obituaries of the Old Order Mennonites and Amish, and here is their obituaries. No pictures of the obituaries because they don't have their pictures taken, but this is where the men like to read. Sunday evenings is generally, during the weekday, it's all about work and they don't do a whole lot of reading and things like that. But Sundays, of course, is the day of rest. And the Amish and the Mennonites believe in not working, and they believe in resting. And that's when you'll see them reading their newspaper. But what about the women? What do the women like to do? Well, the women have their own publication. It's called Family Life. And it's just what it is, Family Life. Now, this publication is from Ontario, Canada, but it is mainly for the Plain people. And in this, it's geared towards the homemaker, the Amish homemaker, the Mennonite homemaker, or the conservative homemaker like me. And it has stories, and has children's stories in it. Then in the back of it, it will have recipes, which I make a lot of recipes in this. Let me share a little bit with you about my early marriage. So I was married at 17 and my husband was 21, and we have 3 children, and they're all in their 30s now and they're all married. But back when we first got married, we had no TV. My children went to a plain Mennonite school, and then in their high school years I homeschooled them. We didn't have a TV most of their growing up, and then we got the TV a little bit for a while. We have not had a TV now for 12 years, so we don't have a TV. But Family Life was very important to me. So Family Life is another publication that you can actually, I think, order it on the online, but it comes through the mail. I don't think you can buy it online. I think you can get the contact information online, and they only take check or cash. Like, they're old Order Mennonite. So then we have that for Family Life, and that was the mom and the homemaker. Then we had the Blackboard Bulletin. Now, the Blackboard Bulletin was for teenagers or preteens, I think generally teenagers. And so these would be stories that would be more for an older child. So we have the Blackboard Bulletin, makers by the same people. So they make this and they make this. And then what's really important to the Amish is the Farmer's Almanac. Now, this one's from 1952, but they had the Farmer's Almanac in their house, on a nail, on a string. Every Amish home has them. So they will have this in their home. with a calendar. So they have an old-fashioned calendar, and they will have this, and they do plant by some of the signs. I think they do go by some of that. They do plant by the moon and things like that, but they do love the farmer's almanac. They're very strict on what the wife can read and what the daughters can read. There are so many romance novels out there. The Amish, I don't think they think much of them. I don't think that they would allow teenagers to read things like that. I'm not sure about that. I do know they don't believe in cards. So there's a game called Dutch Blitz that we played at home as a card game, but the Amish and Mennonites do not believe in cards. They believe cards are evil. So you won't see them playing any kind of playing cards. Then there's all kinds of publications that were out for the homemaker. And this is about Mennonite life. And these were to just encourage the homemaker of the Mennonite home. And that was the keeper of the home. And a Mennonite woman from the little one age, from the time she was 2 years old, was taught the traditional roles of a woman. That was to cook and to clean and to be a mother someday. That was a high calling, and I think it still is. I was raised that way. I was raised on being a keeper of the home, and my mother was a keeper of the home, and my husband's grandma, my husband's great-grandma, they were all keepers of the home when they were in their younger age. And then my husband's grandma, she had to work at the school. She was a cafeteria. She made the food because her husband passed away, and she was a widow. And of course, her daughter, my husband's mom, was in her 30s and 40s. But all of the women in my home life stayed at home. So they were keepers of the home. And then they also have, the Mennonite women do produce a lot of books called The Joyful Woman. And this is teaching young ladies how to be keepers of the home and to guard themselves. And so this is what I read. The Peaceable Quiet Life by John Ruth is another one that I read. This is my reading material. Now, to a lot of people, this would seem really bland and dry, but to me, it has given me such peace. I'm back to my roots, 100%. I just am so extremely happy. And then, of course, you have the Mennonite community cookbooks. Now, Mennonites and Amish have a lot of cookbooks, and a lot of them are not Mennonite or Amish. They just use them in the titles to get sales. You do really need to do your research, because lately there was a canning book came out, and it was Amish canning. The lady was not Amish. The lady did not live a plain life. The lady, she just used that as a title to try to get people to buy it. But this is an authentic one. And in my videos, you're going to see full authentic videos of full authentic recipes. Well, there you go, everyone. And that is what the Amish read. I have a notebook. This is the kind of notebooks that I grew up on. These are plain. These are what the Amish would use in schools. So I have a bookstore that I like to go to, that I went to ever since I was 4 years old. And I got to talk to them, and you know, we shared stories of our families, and they are very old order Mennonites. So we're going to put all this together, and this is what I study. This is what I'm really working on. There's a lot about my faith that I even didn't know. You know, so many times somebody will ask you, well, why do you do this? Or why do you do that? And you sit and think, well, why do I do this? Well, my mom did it. Well, why did she do it? Because her mom did it. Well, why did she do it? And I'm really realizing now the Anabaptist faith, that's the faith, and where I've come from, where my bloodline is, and the people that lost their lives because of persecution. You know, there's a lot of stories that go on untold, and one of them is the plain people and the persecution they had because of the Catholic Church. Way back then, in the beginning of my ancestry, the Catholic Church was the main religion, and if you did not support that, you were considered radical, and you were sought after, and a lot of people were killed because of their faith. My people who, my bloodline, women who were peacemakers, men who were farmers, suffered and lost their lives because they wanted to read the Bible for themselves, and they chose their interpretation of it. And so there's a lot to be said about history. There's a lot to be said, and I am learning it. And boy, oh boy, the deeper I go, the more I'm learning. And you know what? It all started with me saying no to social media as far as Facebook. That's how it really got started. And I really started taking the time that I have and thinking and reading and studying on where have I come from and where am I going to go? And can the things that happened hundreds of years ago happen today? Yes, they could. They could happen all over again. History does repeat itself, and while I'm not getting involved in this part in my videos, I will say this. It is a wake-up call for me, and to realize that history can repeat itself, and what happened to people hundreds of years ago could happen again. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow.
A parting glass